Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. Uh, and I guess today is the Orange felon's 100th day in office for his second term. Um, and The View opened with a reporter from a press conference. That, if you can hear it, is a siren. That's very loud. Um, Asking Caroline Levitt, that freakish little creepy press secretary, um, if Amazon pointing out the cost of the good that a consumer is purchasing, um, uh, that applies to the Trump's tariff, doesn't prove and show that the U.S. consumer is actually paying for the tariff, not the country it's applied to. Um, and she she called it an act of political terrorism, I think. And then one of those big word salad about how, Biden had inflation. Well, okay, but inflation comes and goes. We've never, this is that, that's, um, and inflation, by the way, that Biden was dealing with was worldwide inflation, that he actually controlled at the United States better than most, actually every other industrialized nation. But um, she never answered the question and acknowledged that that is the cost of the tariff. And the whole thing about the tariffs is he's so proud of them. Shouldn't they be owning that and saying yes, but it's bringing in all this money to the country? Because the tariff, I know people keep saying that the tariff is paid by the U.S. consumer, but the cost of the tariff is paid to the U.S. consumer. The government actually does collect revenue on the tariff from the importer, and then the importer just jacks up the price to pay. So that money does go to the government. It really is. It's an import tax. That's what it is. That's what a tariff is, an import tax. So calling it a Trump tax is not a lie in any way. Um, but I just feel like if he's so proud of that, um, and thinks that's going to be such a an economic game changer, to the point where the other day he said he might be able to get rid of income tax altogether, which he can't do. Um, but like, why don't they own it? Why aren't they proud of it? Like, this is their big economic policy. Um, because if the tariffs are going to be great, then wouldn't it isn't it great to have your name attached to it on every purchase? I don't know. It seems a little hypocritical, but gosh, wouldn't that be so off-brand for Republicans to be hypocritical? Um, so they didn't really talk much about that, but then they went to this is his first, I guess it's his 100th day. Um, and then I don't really know why the 100 days is such a marker. Um, but they do all these historical comparisons, and yeah, I mean, he's had the worst 100 days in a century. And he his approval ratings are below 40%, and he now wants to get some sort of investigation into into how those how polls were taken, because he loves ratings and he loves numbers and he loves having bigly audiences. Um, it's just he's such a small, thin-skinned little man, um, that anytime that there's bad news, we've got to investigate it or put it in jail. And I think it was Sonny who said his first 100 days are characterized by trying to consolidate the three branches of government into the executive branch. And I would argue no, he's trying to consolidate all the powers of government into the presidency, and specifically his presidency. Because the executive branch includes the vice president and a whole bunch of cabinet and a whole bunch of federal employees, and he doesn't want any of that. He just wants total control as president. And unfortunately, there's too many people that are letting him get by. You know, little mealy mouthed Sarah Haynes was like, he flooded the zone, and I don't even remember what we were talking about a month ago. And that's that's the point, Sarah. It worked on you. Um, and that's exactly what JB Pritzker was talking about. Is like we need to be um, disruptive every day on every issue. Um, you know, this whole top secret classified information, war plans being discussed, government business being discussed in a single Signal app chat room, and he's been caught again. And I'm sure there's hundreds of instances where he's done that, Hegseth. So it's I just feel like if we're going to look at his 100 days that have been a disaster, and yes, they have felt like 100 years. It's hard to believe it's just a little over 3 months, and the amount of destruction that he's caused, and how much it's going to take to undo it if we don't stop it. Um, but I also thought Whoopi made a really good point that his edicts are not law, and they almost all of them are being challenged in court. We just don't hear about them very much because the media doesn't cover it, just the way the media doesn't cover the protests that have happened around the country very much, just the way the media doesn't cover, uh, you know, uh, efforts being made um, to sort of quell what is happening. They report on what he does and what he says and what his reaction is, um, but we don't really talk about what anybody's doing against it, which again isn't enough. Um, but it seems to be all we can do. Uh, Particularly, it's not enough from our elected officials. And one of them mentioned something about people are scared, including Lisa Murkowski. And I don't know if any of you saw the interview that, or if I don't know if it was a town hall. She was sitting on a stage, and you could see it. She was very measured and very careful about how she chose her words about being fearful and about retaliation being a real thing. And I get it. These people have families. I'm sure that they're being threatened. Trump run on a mafia rule kind of system, so I'm sure that they are threatened in a myriad of ways. But it feels like if it's happening on that kind of a scale, they could all rise up together, or at least a few of them could rise up together. That's the thing that's the most disappointing. And Lisa, just stop being a Republican. Just leave the party. That would help a great deal. And if only if a handful of you did that, you'd actually change the balance of power in Congress, the existing Congress. Give the Senate, you could give the Senate control to the Democrats. You could give House control to the Democrats. The articles of impeachment have already been entered. I don't even remember what for, because there's so many things he's done wrong. Um, but I feel like the deadline came and went for having to prove that he's done something to facilitate the return of Kilmer Garcia, and nothing. What's happening there? And again, the media just isn't reporting what what are the next set of consequences. And it just feels like if he can ignore a SCOTUS ruling, then we don't have a rule of law anymore. And as long as it's in support of Trump, you can do whatever you want. Isn't that the message that's being sent? Um, and that's just kind of terrifying, um, quite frankly. But uh, you know, it's hard to sort of sit in a day-to-day basis and figure out how do I combat this as a as a voter with not much more power other than my vote and my voice. That's it. I can sit here on here and I can complain about this and we can talk about it and how against it we are. But I don't know how much power we have. And I know Whoopi keeps saying it's up to us, but it's up to us to put pressure on our elected officials because they actually have power. They hold the levers. So pressure on those folks. The good news is um, the wonderful country of Canada had a federal election yesterday, And um, because Trump pissed them off so hard, they reelected a liberal majority, keeping uh, the current prime minister Mark Carney as the prime minister. Um, it's it's so interesting, you know. The Liberal Party was getting hammered. Same kind of things, it's about the economy, even though, again, it's a global problem. It isn't all of Trudeau's fault. And, um, you know, crime and homelessness and quality of life stuff. And, it's, and, and because he was worried with him at the helm, the Liberal Party wouldn't be able to win. He stepped down from leadership of the Liberal Party. Trudeau did. And then Trump went on the whole 51st state bullshit and calling him governor and doing this stupid fucking trade war. And Trudeau stood up to him. And the leader of the Conservative Party is very in favor of Trump. And um, kind of a bit of a MAGA himself. So it instantly flipped support into the hands of the Liberal Party, and they won their majority in the government yesterday. And oddly enough, Poliver, who is the leader of their Conservative Party, didn't even win in his own riding. He lost his own local riding. It doesn't mean he can't still be the leader, though, because you don't have to. I don't think you have to be because Carney wasn't. You don't have to be an MP to become the prime minister. And sadly, the leader of the sort of the third largest party, the NDP, also lost his riding, which is kind of unfortunate because he was kind of a good dude, but that third party collapsed in the wake of making sure that the Liberals got the majority. So it's interesting things going on over there, but we've got a very strong opposition in our closest ally and neighbor, that I think is going to help keep a good check on Trump, which I can appreciate. Um, go Canada. Thank you. Our home and native land. It is my family's home and native land. Anyway, um, there was one thing. Now I'm forgetting because I've lost my whole train of thought. That uh, Amy Alyssa Fowler Griffin did that annoyed me that I can't remember what it is now. But oh, I know what it is. She was talking about how Trump's poll numbers have tanked, and even on the two things that he ran on and got elected on, which were border security and the economy. And it's so ironic to me and puzzling and sad that these two things that he were the issues that voters said they trusted him the most on. He's done exactly what he said he was going to do: round up immigrants and deport them en masse, and do this whole tariff bullshit, which we were told over and over again. It happened at debates. It happened. It wasn't just in an echo chamber of liberal media. It was said over and over again that his economic plan would cause inflation and a recession, which is a very difficult thing to do at the same time. And that's what's happening. The two things that they said that they voted for him for, he's doing the things that he said he would do, and it's doing exactly what they were told would happen, and now his voters are mad. I think Whoopi made a really good point about how he was handed a good economy for the first time from Obama. He was handed a rising economy from Biden, and he's destroyed them both. And I think that people forget when some things are going well, they take it for granted that they could fall apart. So, if things are going well in one area, you're going to complain about whatever things aren't going well. Fucking eggs and gas. Go fuck yourselves. The price of eggs didn't come down. Um, Things in Gaza are worse, and uh, we're economically fucked, and we're destroying relationships around the world. So that's which is what we said all these things were going to happen. Um, so I don't feel bad for any Trump voter who's feeling the pain, who feels disillusioned, but I don't know how I don't know where we go from here and how we get it back. Um, I thought Wanda Sykes' answer about what can he do um, to improve the situation is to resign. I think that's hilarious. But JD Vance is a fucking moron and some weird cursed child, so we don't need him running the country either. But I still go back to at some point this has to end, and the sooner the better because it's just going to be harder to undo what he's done. And I don't know where we get that break. It does feel like at this point, uh, he does he is having to own the decisions he's made and the hurt that he's causing. Of course, there's so much in his cult that still think he's the mastermind. He's playing 3D chess, 4D chess, whatever. Because usually chess on a chessboard isn't 3D, but I don't know, whatever. Um, I do feel like he wears it more than um, than most. I just don't know. I don't know how we get over the demonization of Democrats to get that party to win again, unless there's just a giant fundamental shift in how the Democrats campaign and govern. And that's why we need people like AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost, Elizabeth Warren, people who actually fight. Um, and that's why, what David Hogg is talking about is important. I feel like waiting until the next election cycle is a long gamble. Um, and what was Chuck Schumer's response um, to Trump? Well, they wrote a strongly worded letter with 8 very strong questions. Are you fucking kidding me, Chuck? At least everybody else has the common decency to take him to court. Strongly worded fucking letter. Um, so yeah, we need some energized blood that's going to actually fight the regime, despite what Sarah Haynes says. We don't want an opposition party. Well, otherwise, you're agreeing with Nazis, dum dum.